It's no secret that I love lining bodices. Sometimes the instructions aren't there for that because it's just not included, but I do it all the time. And I'm going to show you how to do it 4 ways, focusing on neat dresses, neat bodices with a waist seam. It's going to be super practical. Stay with me. Hi, sewing friends. I'm Karina from liftingpinsandneedles.com. Welcome to this channel that is all about sewing, limitless sewing, and I do have a lot of that for you today. I say this channel is limitless sewing because sometimes we just stray a little bit away from the pattern and add extra steps to our sewing, creativity, and sometimes just for function and for comfort. And that's what lining is for me. When I line a bodice, it's about enclosing side seams, it's about enclosing shoulder seams. Sometimes you can enclose the waist seam when you have a skirt sewn on under there. When those seams are enclosed, it just feels so much softer on the skin, as well as if you're working with a very light fabric like double brush poly, ITY, rayon spandex. It just transforms that bodice into a medium weight fabric, which makes it less clingy, and then it doesn't stick and you can't really see your bra lines, undergarment lines that match. For a fitted bodice, I think that is really important, and that's why I will usually do that extra step if I'm working with those lightweight fabrics. Also, it looks beautiful on the inside. It's just so neat not to see all those seams. And it takes a little few extra steps, but it's not that bad. I think it's worth it if you want to give it a go to add something extra to your sewing. We're sewing at home, we're not producing in mass scale. We don't have a time limit. We don't have to sew 10 dresses in a day. We can take our time. And I think adding something like this to your garment is going to be super worth it. I'm going to show you some examples. I'm going to show you 4 ways to do it. I'm going to show you some of these dresses on backwards so you can see how that looks like on the inside as well as on the outside. I think the result is always amazing, and I've never regretted lining a bodice ever. I'm always so happy when I can do it. You need to find a piece of fabric that is the same as the one that you're using. Hopefully, if you have a little bit left over, you can be surprised at how little fabric you need, or something that is similar weight. You don't want to use something different with a different type of stretch or heavier than what you're using on the outside. So that's just something general for you to consider. I have used rayon spandex to line my bodice. I have used ITY to line bodices. I've used tricot knit lining material that is actually for that. They sell it for lining knit garments because it stretches. So you can have a variety of options there. What I do prefer though is when I get to self-line. I think that looks amazing, but sometimes you just don't have that extra fabric there. So be creative. Sometimes you have little bits from something left over, and that can serve you well. These 4 versions I'm going to show you are different techniques that achieve different purposes. They enclose different areas of the garment, so they're not all exactly the same. And we're going to start with the easiest way, and which is just lining the back bodice, not the front, just the back. I think that's really important. We have our bra straps and all of that there. And if we can make that area sturdier, more supportive, I think that's an easy way to give your garment a little boost, a little step up. So I do line a lot of my back bodices. When the front bodice has a crossover detail, it's a wrap or a fake wrap or a placket or those types of things, I usually am not going to line that. So I'll just leave that be on the front and just line the back. Sometimes you have a bodice that's simple and I would still just line the back. So this is the easiest way you can dip your toes into lining a bodice, and only doing it partially. With this method, you're going to have clean shoulder seams on the inside and clean side seams, but you will still have that waist seam when you attach on your skirt. Remember, all these methods are about a bodice and a skirt sewn on later. So I always want it anchored into a waist seam where there's going to be a skirt attached. So this first method, you are going to sew the skirt on at the end, and you're going to have a waist seam that's going to be serged, but that's fine. You at least get shoulders and side seams really smooth against your skin. So let's see. I'm going to show you how I'm going to line the back piece, and this is going to work in the exact same way whether your bodice on the front is open like this one or whether it's just cut on the fold. It's the same thing. So we're going to enclose the shoulders first. We're going to start by placing our main back here, right sides up. Then we're going to get our front pieces and align them at the shoulders, right sides together. Remember, there's no difference if there's a placket or if your front bodice is on the fold, so ignore the placket over here. So those shoulders are right sides together. Now we're going to take our back lining piece, which is the second layer, and mine is black. It's the same on both sides, but if yours had any difference, you would put the right side of the lining fabric against the wrong side of the front bodice over here. And this is how we're going to align at the shoulders. If we took our front bodice away and made these 2 back pieces touch, they would be right sides together. That's something easy to remember.
if your fabric has a different side. Mine doesn't, so I'm just putting it however it turns out because there's no difference there. So I'm going to align these shoulder seams and get them sewn. I'm going to be sewing with a shallow zigzag on my sewing machine. The seam allowance for this pattern is 1/4 inch, so I'm using 1/4 inch presser foot, but if it's 3/8, then use a regular presser foot. The reason I'm not sewing this directly on the serger is because this is going to be enclosed. You don't need to finish the seam with the serger, and I find the serger seam a little bulky with all the thread that goes in there. So even with knit fabrics, don't forget your sewing machine. It can still do a lot for you. Now magically, pins have appeared. Changing absolutely nothing, keeping this lining bodice right sides up. There is the seam that we did for the shoulders, keeping all the layers exactly the same. Now I've pinned the side seams. 3 layers here, we're going to sew that. And then when we flip it, in the end, we're going to have shoulder seams and side seams enclosed. It's going to be super neat on the inside. So just so you can double check, you have the lining bodice layer, you have your front piece or pieces like I have here, and then your back main bodice piece right there. That's the order of the layers. And now we just sew them. I'm going to use the same narrow zigzag I was using before, and I'm still using my 1/4 inch presser foot just because this specific pattern uses 1/4 inch. Might seem like this does not make sense at all, but it's going to make total sense now when we flip it, and it's going to be amazing. So let's put this how it's going to be. So that's the inside of the bodice. Side seams are all enclosed. They're going towards the back. Super neat. It's going to be super comfortable on your skin. The shoulder seams are enclosed. And now we just have a single front layer and we have a double back layer, which was the goal. Love doing that. Now this back neckline, I'm just going to baste it together, treat it like it's just one layer for the binding. Nothing's going to change there. And remember, if you have a bodice that's on the fold here, you will have a bodice on the fold. Nothing is going to change. And I hope you give this a go.
This is a gorgeous wrap dress, sort of a fitted pencil skirt, wrap bodice, wrap skirt over here. And the back is lined. No one would ever know other than yourself. It's not a pattern hack that is going to change the look of the garment, but it's going to change the way that you feel in it. And it's so lovely, not clinging at the back, so much more supportive. It just is amazing. And on the inside, it feels really soft and smooth because all those seams are all enclosed. Also, no one would know that the inside, that back bodice, is lined with a black fabric. As long as you have something in there that makes sense, that is a similar weight of your main fabric, it's going to be all okay. This is a dress inside out. You can see the front bodice is wrapped. There's the binding, and ta-da, we have a double back right there. The fit is amazing. When you line only the back, you're going to have clean sides, clean shoulders, but you're going to have a waist seam anyway. This is in the occasion that I didn't have the same fabric, so I used a different contrast one in the same weight. The bodice is super fitted, so the fact that that's there gives me a lot of peace of mind, and it's just really supportive there. I'm not going to show you the finished result of that dress you saw me lining there because it's still in progress and it's a pattern that's going to be released soon. So when it's released, then you'll see it all, but you saw the fabric. It's a lovely double brush poly and the process was really nice. You know, ignore that button placket. You know, if it was a simple bodice on the fold, the steps would be absolutely exactly the same. So that's how you do it. It would be exactly the same if you have two fronts because you have a wrap type of bodice, all the same. So I hope that's easy for you to follow. And if you haven't given it a go, you saw how easy it is. You would be so happy if you try it out, I promise. Now, what am I wearing right here? Let's see about that. This is the ballad blouse from Love Notions, and it's the Feature Friday pattern for today. Sizes extra small to 5X. There's lots of options here. This is a sleeveless one, but of course you can do sleeves. This is one of my ballad blouses from Love Notions. I actually have 5 of them. This is the one that gets the most wear just because it's black and it's very versatile. This is a rayon Swiss dot type of fabric. It's nice and long, has a curved hem, beautiful neckline with a placket. I have a sleeveless version. This is my encore skirt, also from Love Notions. Very casual outfit that I would wear right now if I had to go somewhere. Sometimes I've worn this unbuttoned when I'm wearing wide-legged pants or skirts. And it's long enough to be able to undo a few buttons and then just tie it up at the waist, which is something I wouldn't do with a fitted pencil skirt like this. I really enjoyed this one and I made a little hack right here. Instead of doing gathers, I have some small pin tucks. So that was really fun to do. Takes away the same volume. You can also add a shirred little panel over here. So much you can do. And at the back, instead of doing those gathers, I have the pin tucks as well. Don't miss out on this amazing pattern for a great price if you haven't got it. The second method we're gonna see lines the bodice all the way around front and back. So you're gonna have a fully lined bodice. This will enclose shoulder seams, it will enclose side seams, but this method will enclose that waist seam as well. That means that you're going to end up in the end with raw neckline and raw armholes in 2 layers. That means that you're going to need to bind those or add armbands or neckbands. So that is what we're going to see. I think this is a really easy way to line the whole bodice as well if you want to do that. And it's not hard, I promise. Just look at all the steps. I describe them really well on the screen for you. I have partially assembled the bodice pieces. I was able to cut 2 bodices of each so that it can be self-lined. So you can see the V neckline there that I had cut off. That's already been done. I've got the princess seams there on the side already pinned on. And this is the other one. They are exactly the same. I can choose whichever to do the main or the lining. The print is the same. And here are the back pieces. You can see the rounded neckline, that is the back, and the side princess seams there. So I have everything pinned. I just need to sew it together. I'll do them separately and then I'll unite them when I sew on the skirt. I want to include the seam of the skirt between the 2 bodices, and then I'll just have raw edges on the neckline and armholes on the top that I'll baste together and treat as one piece. This is one of the bodice layers, sewn completely, shoulder seams, princess seams, side seams, the whole thing. I'll just put this one aside. They are the same, so it doesn't really matter which one I sew onto the skirt first. And I have the bodice inside and the skirt on the outside. They are right sides together. That's why you're just seeing wrong sides of fabric here. I've matched the side seams of the bodice to the skirt right there. I have pinned this first layer, this first bodice onto the skirt, and I'm going to baste them together just a long stitch length just to hold them together. And then I'll get the other layer of the bodice and put the bodice here on the outside. So I'll basically have the skirt between the bodice pieces. I always think it's easier to manipulate slinky, shifty fabric like ITY in single layers. If this were a bit more structured, I might attempt to do this all in one go. I'd rather just do it now, baste that, make sure it's nice and accurate there, and then do the final stitch with the other layer of the bodice. I have basted this layer of the bodice to the skirt. This will be the bodice that will be seen actually, the layer that will be on the outer side. What I have here is the lining bodice, and I can see here that my front is here and my back is over there, so I want to not make a mistake. So you can see the V neckline here, so that is the front, that is the back. So all of this is going to go inside. The outer layer and the skirt is inside, and this new lining bodice is on the outside. What we have here with the lining bodice is right side to the wrong side of the skirt. So right side of the lining bodice to the wrong side of the skirt. And I made sure that I've got the back piece here to match what is in there. Believe me, I have done this wrong. And now you just need to find all your seams, match your side seams. I'll just carefully pin this around, and then I can do the definite stitch holding all the 3 layers together. I'll do that with a shallow zigzag. I will sew all this now. It's just a round seam. I will use a shallow zigzag because this seam will need to stretch when you put it on and off. It is the waist. Okay, so the waist seam has been sewn. Now you can see that these are raw. You don't need to serge this because it will all be enclosed. So let's push this out. Okay, so here we have the main bodice attached to the skirt, and if we put our hand inside, we can find the other bodice in there as well. We push it up. I've pushed the lining bodice that was in there up, and you can see that the raw necklines match up now, the V neckline. We have wrong sides together here for this lined bodice, so you will see the nice fabric inside when you put your dress. Match the shoulder seams, match everything up, and I'm going to baste these together by hand. I just think it's easier to manage ITY when I baste it by hand, all around the edge of the armhole and the neckline. And then this will just act as one piece when I put on the V-neck band and the armhole binding. This is how the skirt looks. The skirt seam is inside the lining, so what is going to touch your skin is just going to be super smooth, super nice.
So I really love this finish because the dress looks pretty inside. It's comfortable to wear. You get both layers of the slinky fabric just to provide more support on that bodice. Gorgeous fit and flare dress in ITY. I love the print. Bodice is asymmetric, so it's shorter just under the bust here, and then it goes diagonally up to the waist like that. Love it. Pleats over here, and I have my bodice fully lined in this case, both the front and the back. The sleeveless armholes are finished with armbands, neckband over here, very lovely, 2 layers. It's still a lightweight fabric, so it doesn't turn out heavy. It just turns into a medium weight here on the bodice because both layers are there. So lovely. With this one, you'll see that I've used the same type of fabric for the inside, so it's self-lined. Here's an example of a fully lined bodice, front and back. You can see it's an asymmetric bodice, so that is really cool. Pleats over here, and the waist seam is all enclosed in here. You can't really see sewing and serging. All the seams are in there. It feels so nice on. That was enclosed first. All of this is left raw, basted together, and then you just act like this is one layer and finish off your binding or neck bands or whatever you're going to use. Super lovely, feels really nice. I would not be happy to use this ITY in a single layer like this. It would just not feel good, and this feels amazing. So remember, you can't have it all. You can't enclose neckline, armholes, and waist seams. You have to choose. In this case, we chose to enclose the waist seam, which is really nice because this midsection tends to be a really sensitive area for a lot of people. So if you want that smooth finish with all the seams on the inside, and you're going to bind the armholes anyway, which is typically what you do for knits, I think this could be a very common way to line a bodice if you're going to be doing this pretty frequently. Another step from this one, it's all exactly the same, but what happens if you have sleeves? Because what I've shown you up to now has been sleeveless, right? I'm going to bind those sleeveless armholes, I'm going to bind those necklines. But okay, you can bind the neckline or put a neckband there. But what happens if you're going to add on a sleeve? I definitely don't want to sew that sleeve to both layers of the lining pieces. I think that would turn out bulky and it would pull a little. At least I've done that before and I don't like how that feels. So let's see a little extra step that you do here to make sure that that ends up comfortable while still being lined and having a sleeve. I have 2 bodices because I'm going to line them. The bodice is shorter, as you can see there. And I have attached the sleeves on there to the main one. I've put front main to label them and back main because I have front and back lining pieces as well. So on the main one is where I attach the sleeve in a single layer. And I've just sewn it there with 3/8 seam allowance and the shallow zigzag stitch that gives some stretch. The side seams are sewn. I did sew the sleeve on the round like I usually do, so that I can separate here the direction of the seam allowances. I find it more comfortable on the underarm, less bulky. This is the bodice lining, so this one doesn't have the sleeves. That seam has been done, and now let's flip this. Just bring this like this, and the bodice that's inside, bring it out. And you will see on the inside how that seam is enclosed, the skirt and the bodice. It's really nice and clean there. And there is the seam of the bodice and the skirt. This is the inside of the dress. You can see the wrong side of the skirt there, and the arm side, how the sleeve is inside there. That was the one that had been sewn before, and now the lining is just on top there, and I've pinned it around, and then I'm just gonna serge all 3 layers together, and that will accomplish 2 things: finish that edge and hold the 2 together, the lining and the main, with the sleeve. So on the other side, when I wear it, this seam is only sewn onto 1 layer there, and it'll be less bulky. The lining come together with arm side, but not with the sleeve seam, if you get what I'm saying. Now that dress is a summer basics from Love Notions. That dress originally does not have sleeves. I hacked on an armhole from another pattern, added on that sleeve, all of that. That dress is lovely. While it lasted, it was made out of rayon spandex. I have voiced my opinion around rayon spandex and how it doesn't last looking nice. So that's why I'm not showing it right now. But I did film it when I sewed it, and I hope that was helpful. It was a lovely dress while it lasted. Now, the 4th method is totally different. Now, in this case, instead of enclosing the waist seam, we're going to have
a skirt sewn on there, sewn and serged. You can avoid that. What we are going to enclose now is the armhole and the sleeve using a burrito method. Now the method here would be exactly the same if you were doing this with a woven. Now, I'm going to say that this is not common to do with knit. I wouldn't just enclose the neckline and the armholes with knit garments and just flip them, because you would have the risk of this running, stretching out and gaping over time, unless you put clear elastic in there or some way to stabilize these areas. So in the way that I'm going to show you, we are going to suppress the stretch of the armholes and neckline with interfacing. So it works out really well. You get a really stable neckline and armhole that's not going to stretch over time. And because we've fused a little bit of interfacing onto armholes and neckline, it essentially is going to behave like a woven project on those areas. So it means you're going to be able to understitch and do all those things. You're going to have a beautiful neckline, beautiful armholes, all enclosed, all of that, shoulder seams enclosed, side seams enclosed, and then you just have to sew on your skirt. So I think this would be the lengthier one. You know, we're going from the most simple to the most complex. That is number 4. I hope you enjoy. And if you're willing to do some experimentation and add a few more steps, a lot more steps to your garment, it's still worth it. So let's see. I've cut front and back from the main fabric, which is the white one you see on the top, and I've cut the same for my lining pieces. I had fused interfacing onto the armholes there and to the neckline on the lining. I did exactly the same for the back lining there. So there is a strip of interfacing fused along the armhole and along the neckline there on this back lining piece. And you can see the edges have been interfaced. It'll stabilize it and prevent wavy edges. It won't stretch out. The fronts, the black one here is the lining, and that is the main front. You can see the interfacing I've fused onto the neckline of only the lining and also on the armhole, similar to what I did to the back piece. This is my main bodice, and I have the pleats, everything done, mainly all the steps that you did with the original piece. The front lining piece from the pattern doesn't have gathers. There's nothing special about this shoulder seam, it's just regular. And all I have united here are the shoulder seams. And I'm going to take my lining and place it on top, right sides together. And I'm going to sew this V neckline first, all the way around. So I'll start there. I've sewn the V neckline, I've trimmed it, I've snipped it, I've understitched, I've done all those things. So now I can put the lining towards the inside there. So the neckline's finished, it hasn't been pressed or anything, but at least the neckline is done. And now we just need to do the armholes separately. And this is where you use the burrito roll. So you choose any of the armholes, you open it up. You have this attached at the shoulder seams only. So you open it up and you wrap around everything that's inside. And then you sew this armhole, pinning the lining to the main all along this, sewing it. And then we do the same, trim, understitch, all those things, snip. And then the same thing with the other armhole. So that's one armhole sewn. I'll do the same that I've done everywhere and just make the seam allowance a little smaller. Snip the curves, flip it right sides out and understitch. So now we flip it. At this stage, we have the neckline finished and one armhole finished. Before finishing the other armhole, I'm going to understitch. And I always have to do this in 2 goes, from here up to the shoulder and then from the other side up to the shoulder. And getting as far as I can, it's really hard to get full access here. Always pushing the seam allowance underneath the lining and sewing right there on the edge. So I've sewn one of the sides of this armhole and now the other side. Now the lining is on this side and the seam allowance is always under it, as you can see through the sheenness of the lining. Up here we have the armhole that's finished that we've just done. That's got the understitching on the lining. Here's the neckline and here's your loose armhole that hasn't been finished. Have that on the bottom. So just open this up, bring this all in, wrap this around like that. And this is how you're enclosing the other seam of the other armhole there.
So this is just repeating the exact same thing you saw me do, only with this armhole. Once that's done, then we can just turn this all right sides out. Then I have to understitch, give it a good press, and then the bodice is fully lined. Okay, I've just sewn that second armhole, and now you can choose whichever way you want to pull it all out from. Whichever way you do it, it's going to work. Just pull it all out. And magically you have closed armholes, both of them. The neckline, it's all nice. All we have left is these side seams that are open. Now, if you didn't want to enclose the side seams, you could just sew all these layers together. If you really wanted to do that, what I would do is I would serge these two together separately and these two together separately. And I'd sew my seam on the sewing machine so I could press the seam open. That way it would be less bulky than just going ahead and serging the whole thing. But I want to enclose the seams, put these right sides together. This is the front bodice. This is just one piece. You don't have them separate like you do on the back because we had basted it all together, right? So just take the lining from the back right here, hold these together, put a pin so it doesn't go anywhere, and then bring this back lining over like this. And you're going to see your seams right here. So basically you have your back extended with the front in the middle. The front bodice is acting like one piece because both the main and the lining had been basted on the edges. So just make sure that that edges reaches right there where that seam is. I'm going to pin all these layers together. Basically, I have the back main piece and the back lining sandwiching the front side seam that is acting like one piece because we had basted it together before. So that's all pinned and ready to serge. And then on the other side, it's the same. This is the back, the main back, the lining back, it's extended. Take your side seam from the front bodice that's been basted together. Put that right sides together with this one, front with the back right there, making sure that edge of the armhole goes right up to the seam. Bring this lining, wrap it around. Let me tell you how much I love lining things and figuring out how to have clean seams inside. This is how this looks. We have the lining back. What's in between here, the two layers of the front bodice. And then we have the main back piece. And we just need to serge these there. Okay, after those side seams are sewn, we can just flip this. And everything's going to be so nice. Look at the side seams. Nice and enclosed. All I need to do now is tidy this up, give it a press. And then I just have to attach on the skirt on the round.
Check out this amazing fit and flare dress. This is a really light athletic knit, so lovely. I love the print, fitted bodice, fuller skirt, and it's just amazing. The bodice is fully lined. In the original pattern for this one, it was just the front that was lined, not the back. So whatever method you saw there is from me, not from the actual pattern, and it turned out amazing. All fully lined inside, all the seams enclosed, very stable neckline and armholes. And this is just lovely, really adorable. It's a print, so you can't really see all the seams. You can just see the finished shape, and it's so lovely. I'll show you on the inside. I also lined this one with another fabric, not self-lined, still. Here we have a dress with a bodice that's fully lined all the way around. I used tricot knit lining on the inside. It's the perfect fabric for it. Here we do have a waist seam, a serged edge, all that all the way around, a couple of layers over here, but the neckline and the armhole are fully enclosed. Use the burrito method. This is stable. Look, it looks like this were a woven over here, but it's not, so it's not going to allow this to gape. Same as the armhole. It's super nice and closed right here. So I think that is really, really important. You know, the binding and armbands bring it close to you. But if you're not using those, you do need to have this stable somehow. And I think that's the only way you can get away with doing this method with a knit like this. Love this one. This is the method I would use the least. I would say method number 2 and method number 1 are the ones that are mostly going to be used for knit dresses. most knit dresses are going to have binding and neckbands. So method number one, whether you just want to line the back, or method number two, whether you just want to line the bodice, are the most common. I did add this fourth method here just so that you know that there are other options out there for knit dresses if you want to go there. For this fourth method, for a knit, you do really need to suppress that stretch there to get a good result. Yeah, that's my opinion on that. I hope this was helpful. Make your bodices lined. You won't regret it. I never regret mine. It's rarely in the instructions, or maybe even never, but it's something that I always do. There are very few dresses of mine that I haven't lined, and I'm very, very happy to share all of this with you because it's something that you can add as well and be as happy as I am. Don't forget to check out the ballad blouse. This is one of them. I have made 5, only $5 today. I hope this episode was helpful. Let me know in the comments if you have experimented with lining things, how that's gone for you, and I hope you start doing it. It's so much fun. That's all from me. Have an amazing weekend. Bye.